with them at all of Israel, and they ravaged the Ammonites, and they besieged Rabbah, and David remained in Jerusalem.
Step one.
Do you see a problem? He is the king. And what is the statement that is given in the spring? When whom? The kings go out to battle. Who stayed where? David stayed home. Is this the first time he did this? Chapter 10. And David, when he heard of it, sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men, and the Amorites came out and drew up in battle array at the entrance of the gate. Now this is in closer proximity to Jerusalem, but who typically leads armies? One of the interesting things about Saul is Saul went with the army. David has grown very comfortable now. But I don't have to go fight. One of the first problems that you have with sin is typically being in a place you shouldn't be. If David was out with Joab and the army, could David be on the roof? No. No. Typically when we begin to look at the way we sin, we are typically doing something or in a place where we know we ought not be, and we're okay with it. David is on a roof. And notice the text makes it clear that David did not go out. Notice the text mentions it twice. The text mentions it twice. It opens and closes with it. In the spring of the year, at the time when the kings go out to battle, David sent Joab. David did not go. Then it closes out. But David remained in Jerusalem. This is a problem.
How old is he now?
Probably in his 40s, I think. I'll have to look to be sure, but probably in his 40s.
In 5 or 6 he was a teenager?
Well, he has, but this is a hard land, too. Huh? Yeah, Joab, look, here's the thing. You can't go wrong with Joab. I mean, Joab is like towards the bottom of the game. You reach into the bullpen and pull out a reliever. Joab's the guy you want. The dude is fierce in battle. We know this from when he whooped up on the Israelites in the civil war between Judah and the other 11 tribes. He's a fierce competitor. His brother Abishai is a fierce competitor. You don't cross him, and you don't kill a member of his family, because you're going to end up how? So I mean, look, if you had to turn the army loose in a man's control, give me Joab. Is he necessarily a principled leader? I don't think he is. But can he get things done on a battlefield? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's like asking, who did you want leading your army? If I couldn't get Robert E. Lee, I'd want George Patton. And if he was not available, I'd ask for, Omar Bradley would be another great one. And then the guy that led us to victory in the Pacific, MacArthur. Grant was a phenomenal leader. Grant understood the size of his army and understood that he had a numerical advantage. And when he basically win, lose, or draw with Lee, he looked at his army and said, I have more numbers than the other side does. March forward, and we'll win through attrition. That's what he did. William Tecumseh Sherman was a brilliant tactician. William Sheridan, brilliant tactician. Stonewall Jackson, brilliant tactician, knew how to use a piece of land. Nathan Bedford Forrest, brilliant in his cavalry tactics. Some of the most great cavalry tactics come from that man's work. Longstreet. We have a great history of generals. I think my dad just tried to call me. What are you doing? Gee, I don't know, Dad. What would I be doing at 6:15 on a Sunday night? I would not be watching the Cowboys unless, of course, they were playing the Vikings.
Which they won today.
Who? The Vikings?
Yeah, they were on.
I didn't get to see them. I was out.
On Fox Network.
I didn't get to see them. I was out at lunch. Sorry. So.
It's preseason.
It was preseason anyway. It's like doing election polls in 2014. Anyhow.
We're thinking though that Joab was like a major officer.
He was the man. He was a good tactician. As we will continue to see as we continue, Joab really helps put down a rebellion later on. Don't want to give it away because you won't be here for that. So it's not a bad, I mean, look at it. I got an able, capable military leader. Why shouldn't I stay at home? I've fought my whole life. I mean, I've lived in caves. I'm owed it. Found out that today one of the generals that I knew, I didn't know him personally because I didn't hang out with generals. But when I was in Italy, he was the senior mission commander. And just got relieved in Europe because he was the senior mission commander of all the Usura, because he had an affair. You're starting to see this more and more amongst general officers and, got Petraeus. It got a bunch more. It got a colonel out of the 82nd Airborne Division that had a swinging lifestyle.
Swings out of planes.
Yeah, he does. It got the colonel of the 173rd Airborne Division who had an affair with his Terp and put her up in Belgium, and then he would fly up and see the northern 173rd units and would go up and hang out with her. What's wrong with that? What happens is usually you develop a sense of entitlement as you begin to move up.
It's immoral.
Huh?
It's immoral.
It is immoral. David's been fighting. He has a right. Does he not have a right to comfort and stay at back? Should I always go out to battle? I mean, I got a great general I can put in charge.
And he only has a couple wives.
He only has a handful. I mean,
What did God say to Solomon? Who had 300 wives and 700 concubines?
can you imagine trash day for that old man? Can you imagine getting in a fight there? You are not winning, regardless of whether or not you're the king. That's 1,000 women. There's not a couch far enough to sleep on. Hey, think about it. He stays. Now look at his attitude. And it happened late in the afternoon that he arose from his throne. The ESV says couch, bed. He's been lazing around the palace. And he walks out upon the roof of his house, and he saw from the roof a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. Now I want to ask you a couple questions. He's not where he needs to be. He's not doing what he should be doing. He's lollygagging around the palace. He goes out upon the roof in which he would have purview over many a houses, right?
His house was the tall house.
His house was the tall house. He had command and control of the area. Put a 50 on top of his roof, you could dominate the city. Yes, ma'am.
Was this Saul's house before?
No, this is up in Jerusalem where they've taken the fortress of Zion, and he's beginning to fortify. This is the fortress that they took away from the Jebusites. So he's in Jerusalem.
I knew it was in Jerusalem. I couldn't know where Saul was.
Saul's house would not have been in Jerusalem at the time because Jerusalem was controlled by actually a foreign entity. And so when David takes Jerusalem, he sets that up as his capital. But his house is a grand home.
When Saul was dead,
Saul is dead as a post now. Yep. And so he lounging around, He walks out upon the roof of his house that gives him the view of everyone else's house, and he sees a woman bathing. Now, that isn't uncommon. But let me ask you, how does he know that she's beautiful?
He got his binoculars.
You hit it on the head, Brother Walter. Well, it's probably not that close to proximity, but there's probably a closeness to some of the housing. But the fact of the matter is, to know that someone is beautiful, and if he walked out and go, oh, someone's bathing, and just kept walking along, that's one thing. But to be able to define that the woman is beautiful, yeah, we call that guy a peeping Tom nowadays. So what he did was, instead of going, oh, okay, I'm a happily married man, he went, is she using a loofah?
Missed the spot.
Why are you staring at Chris so long?
I'm not looking at Chris, I'm looking at the outlet over there. Patriot fans have a target acquisition problem.
But that is the way it's seen.
Isn't that the way it goes? Typically you start off in a place you should never be, or doing something you should never do. You're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, and then you're looking. And while, yes, he is breaking and committing a sin right now, but if he just stops here, it's not that he's okay, but he's not as bad as he's about ready to get. Yeah, it's all Guy's fault too. Yeah.
Sin, he started out with something minuscule.
He is playing with fire, but he has yet burnt his house down.
Yeah, that's right. But it's smoking right now.
It reminds me of a story I wrote for the Fighting Ivy when I was downrange. There was a story that came out about a man who burned his house to the ground. What had happened was that he had caught a mouse or a rat on a glue trap. He then decided, instead of killing said rat and throwing it in the trash, that he would let it be consumed in a fire in the bonfire he had in his backyard. Takes glue trap, tosses it into fire. Watches in horror as the glue softens, ignites the hair of the rat, and the rat, now free from the glue trap, runs back into the house and behind the wall, burning his house to the ground. Had he thrown the glue trap in the trash, he would have had his house. Had David just went and stopped, he would have been okay. He would have had to repent, yes, of sin, but he doesn't. The woman isn't beautiful. Notice the adjective. The woman is very beautiful.
Not just beautiful, very.
Yeah, I think I just said that. There's an echo in this room and it's on delay. Did you have coffee before you came?
Yes.
I'm glad.
Did you?
No. But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Select.
There you go.
He doesn't.
She sees that she's very beautiful. And had he stopped, he'd have been okay. But what does he do next? David sent an inquiry about the woman. So, this lady that lives, across the way, who is she? Well, she's Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. And had he stopped right here, he'd have been okay. Sure, he has committed 2 sins. But he has not gone to the point where he can lose his life. The thing that catches us is we're in a place we're not supposed to be. We're doing something we're not supposed to be doing. We look at things that we're not supposed to have. We then begin to inquire about the things in which, kind of like when I go to buy an orphan firearm. I go to Gander Mountain or Academy or Guns Galore. I begin looking for the ultimate orphan. I then begin to inquire on said price of said orphan. And then I begin contemplating how to get said orphan into the gun cabinet. Without the wife seeing the purchase on the credit card or the debit card.
Save up some cash here and there.
Yeah, she pillages my cash like the Mongol horde. She's not here. You guys can tell her later.
She's watching it on
Yeah. David sat and inquired about the woman, and one of them says, "This is Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." So David sent a messenger and took her. And she came to him, and he lay with her. Now, a lot of people would like to ascribe a lot of some nefarious meaning to Bathsheba. Clearly, she was on the rooftop to tempt David. Clearly, she was up there to catch another individual. Clearly, when he sends a message to her, she clearly accepted to do that. Now, here's the problem. This is what I would refer to as backwards reading. What would happen today versus what would happen then. It isn't uncommon for people to bathe in the light of the day on their rooftops in that time of the world. And to be bathing naked because you're on the top of your house, not assuming you have a perv glaring at you from the other side. With binoculars. I need a more powerful version. She's just next door, dude. Anyhow.
But the thing we forget, back then, the status of what women were and the status women carry now is so much different. That people don't understand that, when the king said, you come, you come.
Exactly. I mean, I was talking with somebody about this. Those of you who were in the military, does a commander have a passive will? His will is almost always active. I have eaten enough chicken on a Friday afternoon out at Lake Belton because I was in a meeting when a colonel went, I was thinking, Friday is supposed to be a nice day. Maybe we should get together out at Lake Belton and eat some chicken. There's instantaneously after that meeting a frago that is cut for mandatory fun at Lake Belton, and everybody's bringing chicken, and we're all going to be out there from 11 till 3, and then he'll dismiss us. There wasn't anything passive about his statement, though he said it passively. I was thinking that it became a command. When the king says, hey, come to my palace, you didn't go, I don't think I can come to the palace. It wouldn't be appropriate. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. I think she came for one thing and was seduced by an individual whose sole purpose was to get her there to seduce her. Because he began down this road by being on top and glaring, by then inquiring, and then sent over for her. Does she bear some culpability in the fact that he slept with her? Sure. I mean, there's nothing in the text that indicates that David rapes her. But he does bring her there to seduce her. And so now David has...
I still think that she didn't have much say-so in this.
She didn't have a whole lot to say, does she? Yeah. But...
She could say no.
She could say no, but he's the king.
Yeah.
And, well, that would imply that David was prepared to kill her. Now, I don't think that was the case. I think what you have is you have a man who's cunning enough, he has thought this through. Think about it, when you're about ready to commit sin, you have thought through especially one on a large scale like this, you have thought through what you are doing. You have a plan in place to make it happen.
David also was a good-looking man.
David was not an ugly dude. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think also Bathsheba, I think she's one of the saddest characters.
She's extremely naive in one sense.
But even past being naive, I think she was sad because, who knows, he could have been calling her to the palace to talk. Her husband was in battle.
Exactly.
Doing what he was supposed to be doing, and she could have had, the palace could have had news.
Yes.
And summoned her for the news. So she didn't necessarily know why she was.
Exactly. All she knows is she's been summoned.
Yes.
And so you have...
And I don't think that David invited her in and said, let's have tea and cake.
Yeah. And see, this is an issue in basic training command. This is a huge issue in basic training command. The sheer power and the authority of the drill sergeant was able, and many of the girls that get caught up in some of this, we had a guy that is now doing hard time in Leavenworth for having a prostitution ring in a barracks with basic training soldiers. And every one of the girls swore up and down at the trial that it was all consensual. The problem was it can't be consensual because what did the drill sergeant have that the basic training soldier did not have? Power and authority over. So what David has is power and authority. Now that's backwards reading upon the text, but still, he brings her there for the purpose of the end result, which is he's going to sleep with her.
Every step he takes to involve more people.
More people are involved in this sin.
And that's what happens with sin.
Exactly.
You drag in those around you.
Exactly.
You know, and then have to keep, these people had to keep a secret for him.
Yes.
Or they're,
Yes. They are now stuck being the owners of a sin that David commits. Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure I don't know what you would call it, the gossip trail, I'm sure that went through the palace like
Yeah, it's like with anything. Good news travels fast,
yeah.
and a lie travels faster.
You know that King David brought in this girl, Bathsheba.
You know the woman that he inquired about the other day?
Yeah.
He's sleeping with her right now.
And I
It's
think
kind of
that
hard to
went
keep.
through the palace like
Oh yeah.
fire.
His own wives were jealous.
Yeah, I mean she's a newer model. But notice what happens. Now he lay with her. Now she had been purified from her uncleanliness. We all know what this means, or do I need to draw you a picture? She's just finished up with her menstrual cycle. And she has gone through the purification process because before that, if he were to touch her, both he, the bed, and everything would be unclean. So he has now understood where she is and what's going on, and now you see a little bit more planning here. But notice what happens. She returned to her house, and what happens typically when people have unprotected sex?
You get pregnant.
Babies come along! I don't understand really how this doesn't dawn on them before. And the woman conceived, and she said and told David, I'm pregnant. So David now has a bigger problem. And so now we're going to see this sin grow, and as Elaine brings out, we are going to pull more people into this web of sin. David sends to Joab a letter and says, send me whom? Send me Uriah. When Uriah came to see David, this is verse 7, David asked how Joab was doing. and how the people were doing and how the war was going.
That is so bogus.
I have been asked questions by generals and colonels, Chaplain, how are the troops? And a lot of times they want a quick answer. They don't really want the real answer. You say, good, sir, and they go, great, and they truck on. Now, my commander wanted to know, but he wanted to know in private. David doesn't want to know how Joab's doing. David knows how Joab's doing. I am sure that he and Joab are in regular communication. This is all bogusness to get Uriah back, because if Uriah goes on leave, Uriah gets to do what? Sleep with his wife. David's off the hook. Life is good. It's a good plan. It's a workable plan. It's a great plan. Except for Uriah has this annoying principle. Go down to your house and wash your feet. If I must draw you a picture on what he means, I'm okay with that. But I'd rather you just kind of roll with it. And Uriah went down out of the king's house, and there followed him and a present from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all of his servants, and did not go down to his house. That ruined the plan. Why does Uriah not sleep? Well, we'll tell you why. David said to Uriah, verse 10, have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house? And Uriah says to David, the ark and Israel and Judah dwell in booths or tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the fields. Shall I then go to my house and eat and drink and lie with my wife? That would be the wash your feet following thing. As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing.
He really jabs David right there.
The plot doesn't work. Up until this point, David had a foolproof plan to have his cake and eat it too. I'll bring Joab back. He'll sleep with his wife close enough in date and time. Pow, pow, pow. My hands are clean. Great. Typically, when we are planning to commit sin, this is usually our level of thinking, and then we come along and there's somebody like Uriah that won't help you out.
Yeah, but there had been some time because they didn't have the little pins that you could test. And
That's true.
you
That's
could wait for her to miss a couple
Yep.
cycles.
Oh, huh? Well, and here's the great thing. Well, it just must have come early. Right? Guys are bad with math. Right? It was close enough, 4 weeks. Yeah, you didn't carry the one. So David, he comes up with a better plan. What's a great way to get a guy to go to bed with his wife? Get him drunk. So David said to Uriah, remain here today and also tomorrow, and I'll send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem, and David invited him, and he ate in the presence and drank, and so that he made him drunk. And in the evening he went out to lie on his couch, and his servants of the Lord did not go down to on his couch with the servants of the Lord, but he did not go down to the house of the Lord, even drunk. Dang it! Come on, man, help me out. I'm going to get found out that I got your wife knocked up. So go home and help me out. You're drunk. Help. Go, 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 go. David, seeing that this problem will not be resolved this way, instead of coming clean, which would have been the best thing to have done, decides now to take it one step further. And he now makes other men complicit in his crime. They're already complicit in the adultery. Because they went and summoned her, they kept it quiet, they got him drunk, all in an attempt to cover up the crime. But now David elicits men to help him more than anything else. And in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And in the letter he said, set Uriah at the forefront of the highest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die. Imagine Joab's response to this. Oh. Okay.
What did he do?
What did he do? We will see how Joab uses this because he fears the king will be angry to quell the king. Now Joab is complicit in this crime because it's going to be hard to distinguish that, oh, Bathsheba, your husband died. Hey, why don't you come and marry me? 7 months later, a baby comes out. Wait, carry the one. Thought it was 9 months. Who knows numbers? And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah the place where he knew there would be valiant men. The men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and this is key, some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. So who else dies to cover up this sin? Other men of David's men. So now you have wives and kids and widows to cover up the crime of the king that could have stopped if he simply had gone into battle where he should have been in the first place. And he did not go. You have men that are dead that would not have been dead if he simply would have looked and then moved on. Asked and then stopped. Sent for her and said, this is wrong, and backed away. But now there are more men dead, and Joab now is complicit in the murder, because while Joab may not necessarily know that he is about ready to murder Uriah for the king to cover up an adulterous affair, he is still complicit in the fact that he gives the order to put Uriah there. Then Joab sent and told David all the news of the fighting, and he instructed the messenger, when you have finished telling all the news about the fighting to the king, then if the king arises in anger and says to you, why did you go so near to the city wall to fight? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who killed Abimelech and the son of that dude? Do not a woman cast up an upper millstone on him from the wall, so that he died at Thebes? Why did you go near the wall? Then you shall say, your servant Uriah is dead also. Joab knows or suspects something is foul in this death. And so in the response, when the king gets angry and says, why did you go near the wall? Why did this happen? Why are all these men dead? Did you not know that they would shoot at you from the wall? Yeah, I knew that, but you told me to put Uriah at the front, and he is dead. There's a veiled threat of uncovering something here.
Well, especially when in the letter, be sure to send a Uriah. You wonder, what did he do?
That's right. Joab is smart. I mean, look, if you get a message like this from a very powerful person to put one guy at the front and have him, and then pull away from him in battle, you kind of know there's something underhanded here. And so you know that what you're being asked to do is something grossly underhanded. And you have that ability to go, hey, I know you're angry, but the guy you wanted dead is dead. So I wouldn't make much more of a stink of this.
Do you think he deleted that file?
Huh? Yeah. I'm going to stop and behave. I about went down a rabbit trail that would not have brought me back out for a while.
Shortly after that, there's a wedding announcement.
It's amazing, right? I counseled her in her grief, and we just hit it off after that.
There were lots of eyes rolling, but probably not as much talking because of fear.
Yeah, look, if the king is going to set Uriah the Hittite up to be killed, he's got no problem setting anybody else up to be killed. And this is the great tragedy of the sin that happens here. Look at how fast this thing goes from being in a place where he's not supposed to be to a man being dead and other men being dead, all because you wanted to have a good time. The speed at which sin travels, and here's the thing, the depravity at which one will sink to cover it up. Kind of like not releasing all of her emails. Anyhow. Did I say that out loud? That's that inside thing I need to work on.
Literally just whisper that comment 5 seconds earlier.
We gotta stop working on that, because like we've got that freakishly weird force thing going on.
What do you think about the fact that this is something that someone else tried on David?
Who tried this on David?
Saul. Saul wanted to get rid of him, so he sent him out into hardened battle.
Oh, that part.
You think maybe David kind of picked a few from him?
No, I think David is desperate to cover up his sin. And as king, and you have an army at war, you have the advantage and facilities and the means by which to facilitate the death of the one guy that won't go home and sleep with his wife. Even after being drunk. Come on, sailor, let's go.
I thought it was odd that Saul tried to do the same thing to him, and now he's doing it to someone else.
Yeah, but Saul wasn't trying to cover up a sin that he had committed. David is looking to cover up a sin here. And he has the means and the ability to make disposal of the sin and make it all go away. And if anyone else talks, they're gonna get cement galoshes. He'll do me his favor. You'll sleep with the fishes. Make you an offer you can't refuse. Notice David's response. It is classic. It is classic. The callousness of what he says is classic. So the messenger went and he came and told David all that Joab had sent him to tell him. The messenger said to David, "The men gained an advantage over us and came out against us in the field, and we drove them back to the entrance of the gate. Then the archers shot at your servants from the wall. Some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also." David said to the messenger, "Thus you shall say to Joab, do not let this matter displease you, for the sword devours now one and now another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it, and encourage him."
It's just war. After all.
Things happen in war. The sword kills one man, it kills another. It's not your fault, Joab. Be encouraged and take the city. You've gone now from being in the place where you shouldn't be, looking at someone you shouldn't look at, contemplating the ways to make it happen, putting a plan into action to make it happen, finding out that you're now caught in the red-handed in the sin, developing a plan to cover up the sin. When that won't work, you eliminate the source that could expose the sin, and then you look at all the individuals who helped you in this, especially Joab, and say, don't worry, your hands aren't guilty at this. Well, yes, the king gives Joab the command, but Joab being a commander put the man there, right? Joab could have looked and said, I'm not doing this. Why? Why do you want Uriah dead? Uriah has been nothing but a good man towards us. He has been a good person. Why is this man, do you want me to pull away from him? Because he's told him to basically kill him. And Joab knows his hands are dirty. He just doesn't know to what extent.
Well, do you think Uriah was a proselyte?
I think so. I think so, because
Jewish girl.
he did. And you also have this phraseology, like with Ruth, all the way through the book of Ruth, she is always referred to as Ruth the Moabitess. I mean, I think he's a proselyte, especially to be living in the city of Zion. I don't think he's a non-believer. I think he's a God-fearer. Say again?
He married a pretty high-ranking girl, too.
He did. So I would think that he is definitely a God-fearer, what we would call in the New Testament time a God-fearer. So
he must have also been fairly high-ranking.
David threw away a man of great valor. And that's the other thing that the sin requires, is he loses a valiant man, and he loses more men. And then he tells Joab to take the city, and all this is forgiven because Uriah will have died in the initial assault of the city. You get to write this up, Uriah the Hittite slain in battle by the evil people that held the city. Let's remember him as the martyr that he was, as he died, as he filled full of arrows, killing the enemy for the great nobility of the kingdom. And we all know the reason why he dies is because David was in a place he shouldn't be, looking at a woman that wasn't his, plotting to be able to sleep with her, sleeps with her, and then covers up the crime by killing the husband.
As a king, though, didn't he have other opportunities? Or, I mean, he could have fired the guy, taken her.
That wouldn't necessarily wouldn't have been a godly thing to have done. That'd have been a very open thing to have done, very public to have done that. In this way, it was all good until he wouldn't sleep with her. My plan worked perfectly until my plan didn't work perfectly. So yeah, I mean, there are certain aspects that the king and certain powers that the king has, but that would have been something that would have been, if he had the ability to do that, would have been one of those categories that fed into, while you may possess the authority to do so, it's not prudent to exercise that authority to do so. In this case, it was all great because no one knew until she popped up pregnant.
So it was her fault.
Women get blamed for a lot in the text that they just aren't necessarily at fault for. While yes, she was part of this problem, the initiator all the way through has been David. When the wife of Uriah heard that her husband was dead, she lamented over her husband and went and when the mourning was over, David sent and brought her into his house, and she became his wife, and she bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. And it won't stay quiet. And it will cost him more than just Uriah and a handful of men.
Well, it could cause him to have a household that was always in turmoil.
It will, and we will see how a lot of this unfolds from this sin. So you have a godly man. If you, up until chapter 11, in a dictionary picture of godly man, there's David with a lyre. After chapter 11, he can still be there. But not for a couple of chapters, because David thinks that all is hidden. All is taken care of. See, this is the great thing about sin, when we think that we are done with it and we have covered it up and we've walked away and we've done this. We go, no one knows what I've done. I got away with it. Guess who knows?
Sin takes you further than you wanted to go. It keeps you longer than you want to stay. And it costs more than you ever thought you'd pay.
It'll cost you more than you ever thought you'd pay. This act right now is punishable multiple times by death. The adulterous affair in itself is punishable by death. The fact that you have now committed murder of an innocent man is also punishable by death. But I'm the king. Yeah, I got that. Then tomatoes taste good with chicken too. So, you know. Questions?
Well, the death,
Huh?
the death for the adultery would have been upon both of them, though, right? David and
You got to look in the New Testament when they caught the woman in adultery,
Yep.
brought her before Jesus. What did they do to the guy?
Yeah, because the real thing was they weren't really interested in killing her or the boy. They were trying to trap Jesus. David thinks he's gotten away with this. He is scot-free until chapter 12.
Where sin's involved, though, we think that too.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. Look, there are many times when, especially when I was a much younger person and was a much... anyhow. I believed that I had gotten away with a lot of things. I thought my mom had ESP a lot of times because she really could tell when I had done something wrong. I don't know how she knew, but I swore for the longest time she had ESP. She just knew. I think it's because I had a brother and a sister, and they were willing to snitch. Now, since I wasn't king, I couldn't send them out to battle and have them killed. Any other questions?
Do you think Uriah might have known, and that's why he wouldn't sleep with his wife?
Nope. Nope. I think Uriah exhibits the character of a quality soldier. I think Uriah's explanation of the army's in the field, I shouldn't be back here enjoying the pleasures of... Because you think about it. That would be like the president pulling me out of Iraq on my 15-month tour to ask me, "So, Ashley, how's the war going?" "Well, sir, from Fob Delta, Iraq, it looks swimmingly well. Thanks for asking. Go home and be with your wife." Why?
But you wouldn't think that. But you wouldn't get suspicious or think that was weird at all.
I would think it would be very weird that you've called me out, but I wouldn't have assumed that necessarily that the president has slept with my wife. Because he'd have been dead. I mean, hey, yeah, I'll go right home and do that. But can I come back? Then we had a new election. But anyhow.
See, at that point, you see how depraved David is, though.
Yep.
Because Uriah tells him why he wouldn't sleep with his wife. He tells him that his place should have been in the field with the men doing the war duties.
He references the ark.
And who was not in his place in the field doing the work? Right.
Exactly.
He pointed the finger right at him without even knowing it.
Exactly. There's a bit of an insult to the king. The army's in the field. I can't go home and be in a nice place. Well, but you can. 2, he also references the ark being in a tent, being in a booth. So he had at least reverence for the ark and what it could do. All these things are intense. I can't go home and be in my house. It's kind of like if you've ever been out in the field or if you've ever been in the army, you will see that typically commanders and first sergeants or commanders and sergeant majors eat last, and officers usually eat last if it's at a battalion function. One of the worst St. Barbara's Day balls I've ever attended in my entire life was in Iraq. We owned the cooks, but our brigade never asked us to get the cooks involved, and so they brought in mermine and chow. And it was the first thing through was, "Fill your plate, fellas, there's plenty of chow." So I had chicken and steak and lobster and shrimp, and I had a dessert and about 4 or 5 drinks. And as they began running out of chow, they began cutting it back to, you can have chicken or steak or lobster or shrimp. And then as they ran out of chow, I watched the ADCM, which was the deputy division commander of 4th Infantry Division. He had a lettuce sandwich with a bottle of water. And the sergeant major, who was the guest of honor, had a bag of chips and a Coke. I didn't really feel guilty. I really felt bad for my brigade because you're like going, but, you know. But typically the model is the highest ranking eat last. And so that you take care of those who are under you to make sure that they have a full belly to do the war fighting on. As Uriah is a commander, he can't go home. That would be special privilege. So he doesn't. No, but the way I would assume is that Uriah is probably a middle-level guy. I don't think he would be like...
Well, they were talking about sending him to the front of the line. I wouldn't expect that you'd send a crowd to the front of the line.
No, see, you would be reading. You would be looking backward on this. Men of battle go into battle, and so even as a commander of men, he would be out at front. Normally, the king should be out at front. Uriah is a valiant warrior. That you take your best men and put them at the front. They are the vanguard of your unit because you smash the other enemy's line.
I'm just wondering if there might have been some, I don't know the Navy word for scuttle, but gossip among the troop, I guess. Why do they call him instead of Joab being the king's secretary? Why do they call him to go back?
Well, it's not uncommon for messengers to go back and forth, as you see Joab sends a messenger back to David. No, but he was called back to bring the king a message. And so, you know, most people would go, that's kind of weird. Okay, and truck on. I don't think they would have put together all this, and I don't think they are going to put together all this till much later on. I think Joab's a pretty astute guy. There's a lot of arguments of silence you can draw from here, but simply his answer back to the king. If the king gets angry, you tell him that Uriah is dead. And that should shut the king up.
Was it he related to David?
Joab? Yes, he is. He's his cousin. Yeah. But he knew that would hush the king. So he understood the nefarious nature of what he was asked to do.
For some reason, he knew Uriah was being mugged out.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you've done a favor for somebody that's kind of off the books and then they start getting really aggravated with you. Hey, you know that thing? That thing? That you don't want everyone to know about? You know, that thing? Oh, yeah. Hey, how you doing? How's the wife and family? Hey, I got to go. And usually hush up and run along. That's kind of what Joab's doing. Very, very interesting interplay here.
Well, I stop back and think, further on down the line, I don't think Bathsheba's a dumb girl.
No, I don't think she's an idiot.
She helped put her son Solomon, some of her conniving, helped put him on the throne.
She does catch on quickly to court politics. I think that's a great way of putting it.
Yes.
I've lost a husband. I have an opportunity to put my son on the throne. I think she's an astute person.
And she knew that she was the number one wife, too.
Kind of helps when you know that the king has killed your husband. You know, Solomon would make a great king, murderer of my first husband. Not saying anything, but I don't. But anyhow, you know. But there's a lot of arguments of silence that kind of puts that together. But yes, I think you can make allusions in that area. Any other questions? We're about 5 minutes over past the 7 o'clock time. Then I'm okay with that as long as you want to ask questions. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say that that's how honorable Uriah was, that he, when he was doubling dressed himself, was not
Yep. Anything else?
I'm really glad that God puts human beings in the Bible,
Yes.
because all of us have sinned, and every person in the Bible except Jesus Christ shows their backside once or twice.
Absolutely.
And though David was a man after God's own heart, he disappointed God greatly.
He does. And he'll do it again. He'll do it again here in just a little bit.
Was God dealt with from Abraham all the way to Moses, and all of them boo-booed.
Absolutely. When you go through the Hall of Faith in Hebrews, with the exception of Enoch, and I think there's maybe one more, I'm not sure. I'd have to just going off without having looked over it before I came in here. Every one of them were flawed individuals. Every single one of them.
Elijah, didn't he get taken out?
Elijah's the other one. So Enoch and Elijah. But Elijah, though, sits in the cave and says, "Oh, Lord, I'm the only one that's left." And God says, "No, brother, there's 7,000 of you, so hush up." But if you look at them, they're liars, cheats. I mean, Jacob is a cheat. He cheats his brother.
His name, Jacob, is a deceiver.
Yes. So you have these men. David, see, we put them up on pedestals. When you read their lives, you look and go, man, this guy is a lot like you and I. Moses. Hey, Moses, the Jews put Moses up there, but as you're looking through this story, Moses is kind of a flawed dude. Send somebody else. This is why I told you back in Midian, don't send me. Then he gets angry and he smacks the rock when he's told to talk to the rock. He's a flawed cat. Then you look at the judges that they use. And the text mentions Jephthah, who the text calls a worthless man, and Samson, who flaunts all of God's laws, and yet the text says he's a man of faith. Flawed men. They're all flawed. It's a great thing that he uses flawed men, because if we were to try to hold up a standard of perfection, we wouldn't live up to it, and none of them did either. I think it's a great chapter to look at when you want to look at faith. All these men live by faith, but you go read their stories and they're horrifically flawed.
It's also a wonderful testament to God's faith.
That's exactly right. He binds himself to corrupt vessels. Yep. Any other questions? Let me close this out with a word of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this example of David. We will see that as the man after your own heart gets caught in his lie, the weight of what he has done closes in upon him in his response. It doesn't diminish who David is in your eyes, and it shouldn't diminish who David is in our eyes, but set an example that all of us are flawed. And all of us have sinned. And all of us have sinned and will sin. And we will practice this level sin the way David did. And we are thankful for the fact that by the shedding of your Son's blood, our transgressions are covered. That our relationship with you is not severed for the moment when we sin. We ask your blessing upon us as we leave here, and we ask your watch care over us all. We ask for your strength to us, and that you would bring us safely back to worship with you again. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, folks. Let's settle up or circle up and